In 1949, the newly formed NBA features 17 teams, most of them clustered in the Northeast and Midwest. Franchises like the Rochester Royals, Fort Wayne Pistons, and Syracuse Nationals play in small gymnasiums, drawing modest crowds in regional markets. The league's footprint barely reaches west of the Mississippi River, and travel costs make national scheduling a nightmare. As teams fold or relocate, contraction trims the league to just 8 teams by 1955, creating a temporary sense of stability. But television exposure, player salaries, and fan interest soon demand a wider, more balanced map. The Syracuse Nationals, one of the league's last true small-town holdouts, relocate to Philadelphia in 1963, replacing the defunct Warriors. 5 years later, the St. Louis Hawks moved to Atlanta, marking the NBA's first permanent push into the Southeast. Despite these shifts, the league still sits at just 14 teams in 1968, barely larger than its 1950s version. The appetite for national relevance and a brewing rivalry with the ABA forces the NBA to expand quickly. The modern expansion era begins the same year, with 6 new franchises and a long overdue coast-to-coast map. In 1967, the NBA launches its first major expansion, adding 4 new franchises: Seattle Supersonics, San Diego Rockets, Houston Mavericks later renamed, and Chicago Bulls within a single calendar year. By 1968, 2 more arrive, the Milwaukee Bucks and Phoenix Suns. This sudden burst swells the league from 10 to 14 teams, a 40% increase driven by competitive pressure from the upstart ABA, which formed in the same year. The NBA Board of Governors authorizes rapid expansion, partly to preempt ABA encroachment into promising markets like San Diego and Seattle. Meanwhile, established teams struggle to hold talent as the rival league offers bigger contracts to college stars. The Rockets, launched in San Diego in 1967, lose 67 games their first season, but secure Elvin Hayes with the number 1 pick in 1968. Drawing modest local attention, attendance still lags, and in 1971, the franchise relocates to Houston, where a new arena and favorable TV market offer better financial upside. Seattle's Supersonics endure a similarly rough start, winning just 23 games in their debut campaign under coach Al Bianchi, but their placement in the Pacific Northwest proves shrewd long-term. The NBA's expansion from 10 to 14 teams in just 12 months reshapes the national map and introduces a precedent for market-based growth. In 1968, the NBA admits the Phoenix Suns and Milwaukee Bucks as part of its second major expansion wave, bringing the league to 14 teams. Both franchises struggle early, but their futures diverge dramatically after a single coin flip in 1969. That spring, the league holds a 2-team lottery to determine who receives the first overall pick. The prize is Lou Alcindor, UCLA's 3-time national champion and undisputed number 1 prospect. Milwaukee wins the flip, drafts Alcindor, and immediately shifts from basement dweller to contender. By 1971, just 3 years into existence, the Bucks win 66 games and dominate the playoffs en route to their first championship. Alcindor, who soon changes his name to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, averages 31.7 points and 16.0 rebounds during that postseason run. Meanwhile, the Suns follow a slower trajectory, struggling through a 16-win inaugural season before gradually climbing the standings. Phoenix finally breaks through in 1976, reaching the NBA Finals behind Paul Westphal and Alvin Adams, but falls in 6 games to the Boston Celtics. Milwaukee's rapid rise demonstrates the outsized impact of a single generational draft pick, especially in a shallow league still adjusting to expansion. In 1970, the NBA expands to 17 teams by adding 2 new franchises, the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Buffalo Braves. Cleveland joins the Eastern Conference, while Buffalo is slotted into the Atlantic Division, sharing a region and future tension with the New York Knicks. The Cavaliers struggle immediately, finishing their inaugural season with a 15-67 record, the league's worst. Their first coach, Bill Fitch, installs a defensive identity but lacks the talent to execute it. The team ranks dead last in points per game, field goal percentage, and assists, underscoring how steep the talent gap is for new franchises. Buffalo fares slightly better, but also hits long-term turbulence. The Braves draft Bob McAdoo in 1972, who wins MVP in 1975 by averaging 34.5 points and 14.1 rebounds, but the front office fails to build around him. After several ownership changes and declining attendance, the team relocates to San Diego in 1978, eventually rebranding as the Clippers. Meanwhile, Cleveland claws its way into playoff relevance by 1976, upsetting the Washington Bullets in the conference semifinals behind Austin Carr's leadership. The league now sees a pattern. Expansion teams rarely win early, but strategic drafting can buy time until a market proves viable. The NBA adds 3 new franchises in 1970: Buffalo, Cleveland, and Portland. While the other 2 struggle for early relevance, Portland's front office takes a slower, more deliberate path. The Blazers spend most of their first 6 seasons in the basement, never finishing above 4th in their division. But they draft wisely, building around defensive anchor Bill Walton, who enters the league in 1974 as a 6'11" center with elite passing instincts. They avoid costly trades and ignore marquee free agents, instead assembling a young core through the draft and low-profile acquisitions. By 1976-77, that long-term strategy pays off. The Blazers finish 49-33, then sweep the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals behind Walton's league, leading 14.4 rebounds per game. In the finals, they rally from a 0-2 deficit to defeat Julius Erving's 76ers in 6 games. Walton averages 18.6 points and wins Finals MVP, anchoring one of the best passing frontcourts in league history. No player on the roster averages more than 21 points. Balance is the system. Portland becomes the first expansion team to win a title within 7 years of entering the league. The following season, Walton wins league MVP, but foot injuries derail Portland's shot at a dynasty and force a trade by 1979. The Blazers' early title sets an expansion benchmark the next 5 franchises fail to match. The New Orleans Jazz joined the NBA in 1974 as the league's 18th franchise, expanding the footprint deeper into the South. Ownership builds the team around Pete Maravich, a 6'5" guard known for his flashy ball handling and college scoring records. By 1977, Maravich leads the league with 31.1 points per game, but the supporting cast lacks stability. Over 5 seasons in New Orleans, the Jazz cycle through coaches, rank near the bottom in defensive efficiency, and failed to post a single winning record. They average just 35.6 wins per year and never make the playoffs. Despite the struggles, the team draws well locally, finishing top half in attendance multiple times. But ownership cites persistent financial losses and the inability to secure a long-term arena lease as reasons to relocate. In 1979, the Jazz moved 1,800 miles northwest to Salt Lake City, keeping the Jazz name even though the region has no musical association. The naming oddity becomes a permanent quirk of NBA geography. The league approves the move without expansion replacement, setting up a 7-year gap before the next new franchise enters. The Dallas Mavericks joined the NBA in the 1980-81 season as the league's 23rd franchise, awarded to a Dallas investment group for a $12 million expansion fee. They're placed in the Western Conference's Midwest Division, and unlike many new teams, they show flashes of competitiveness early. In their first ever regular season game, the Mavericks defeat the San Antonio Spurs 103-92. A rare opening win for a debut franchise. The roster, led by journeyman forward Jim Spanarkel and rookie guard Winford Boynes, struggles overall, but establishes a foundation for quick improvement. By year 4, Dallas makes its first playoff appearance, finishing the 1983-84 regular season with a 43-39 record. They draft wisely Mark Aguirre in 1981, Rolando Blackman in 1981, and Derek Harper in 1983, building a core that matures quickly under head coach Dick Motta. 4 years later, in 1988, that group pushes the Mavericks into the Western Conference Finals. They take the eventual champion Lakers to 7 games, forcing a 117-102 win in Game 6 to extend the series. That near upset signals the Mavericks' arrival as a legitimate force, just 8 years after joining the league. Their success sets the stage for the next wave of 1988 expansion teams, this time in the Southeast. In 1988, the NBA adds 2 new franchises to capitalize on growing Southern markets, the Miami Heat and the Charlotte Hornets. Miami joins the league with a roster cobbled together from expansion draft castoffs and second-chance veterans, opening their inaugural season with 17 straight losses. Their average scoring margin in that stretch sits at -15.6 points per game, and by season's end, the team finishes 15-67. Meanwhile, Charlotte's launch taps into a surprising pocket of basketball enthusiasm in North Carolina, drawing nightly sellouts in the 2,300-seat Charlotte Coliseum, the largest in the league at the time. Despite early losses, the Hornets build a rabid local following, selling out 364 straight home games between 1988 and 1997. The Heat take a different trajectory, relying more on front office stability and timely draft picks to engineer a quicker rise. By 1992, just 4 seasons after their debut, Miami makes the playoffs behind Glenn Rice's 22.3 points per game and a 38-44 record. Charlotte, for all its fanfare, takes until 1993 to win a playoff series, but both teams prove expansion can work in non-traditional markets. The early 1990s success of Miami and Charlotte sets a precedent for the next round of teams. In 1989, the NBA expands to 27 teams, admitting the Orlando Magic and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Both teams pay a $32.5 million entry fee and receive identical terms, 11 players to choose in the expansion draft, and the 11th pick in the 1989 NBA draft. Orlando selects Nick Anderson at number 11, while Minnesota takes Pooh Richardson. The Timberwolves host games in the Metrodome, drawing over 1 million fans, despite a 22-60 record. Orlando, meanwhile, builds momentum with flashy branding and sellout crowds, even before the team becomes competitive. The true inflection point arrives in 1992, when the Magic win the NBA draft lottery and select SU center Shaquille O'Neal, a 7'1", 294-pound rookie who averages 23.4 points and 13.9 rebounds. 2 years later, they trade the draft rights to Chris Webber for Penny Hardaway and 3 first-round picks, fast-tracking their rise. By 1995, just 6 years into their existence, Orlando reaches the NBA Finals after sweeping Jordan's Bulls and defeating Indiana in 7. Minnesota, meanwhile, struggles to find footing, winning just 21 games in 1995, with no all-star caliber talent in sight. The contrasting trajectories underscore how a single draft win can warp the timeline of an expansion team. In 1995, the NBA adds 2 new franchises north of the border, the Toronto Raptors and the Vancouver Grizzlies. It's the league's first international expansion, driven by a push to globalize the sport and tap into a hockey-first market. Both teams debut in unconventional venues. Toronto plays in the Skydome, home of MLB's Blue Jays, while Vancouver takes the court in the 1900-seat General Motors Place. These setups create logistical challenges for basketball operations, but the league bets on long-term brand recognition over early profits. On the court, results split quickly. The Raptors draft Damon Stoudemire 7th overall and win 21 games in year 1, then crack the playoffs in just their 5th season, led by Vince Carter's 25.7 points per game. Vancouver, meanwhile, fails to win more than 23 games in any of its first 6 seasons. In 2000, the Grizzlies bottom out at 22-60, and declining attendance accelerates ownership's decision to relocate. By 2001, the franchise moves to Memphis, leaving Toronto as the NBA's lone Canadian team for the next 22 years. In 2004, the NBA approves its 30th franchise, the Charlotte Bobcats. This marks the league's first expansion since 1995 and serves as a re-entry into a market left vacant 2 years earlier, when the original Hornets relocate to New Orleans. The Bobcats build from scratch, selecting former UConn forward Emeka Okafor with the 2nd overall pick in the 2004 draft. Okafor averages 15.1 points and 10.9 rebounds as a rookie, winning Rookie of the Year, but the team still finishes 18-64, tied for the worst record in the East. Across their first decade, Charlotte cycles through coaches, fails to attract elite free agents, and never climbs above 44 wins in a season. In 2010, the Bobcats make their lone playoff appearance as the 7th seed, but get swept in 4 games by Orlando. Fan engagement remains lukewarm, prompting a full rebrand in 2014, when the franchise reclaims the Hornets' name and history after New Orleans drops it. The Bobcats' name disappears from NBA records, essentially erased in favor of continuity. Still, the reboot doesn't spark much postseason success. Charlotte, now back as the Hornets, remains the only active NBA franchise without a single playoff series win. The team struggles underscore how expansion clubs, even with promising starts, often face steep structural disadvantages. Next, another former expansion team leaves its original city and takes a young superstar with it. In 2008, the Seattle Supersonics officially relocate to Oklahoma City after 41 seasons. The move follows a prolonged dispute over public funding for arena upgrades, ending with new owner Clay Bennett buying the team in 2006 and negotiating a buyout with the city. Seattle receives $45 million in the settlement, and the franchise rebrands as the Oklahoma City Thunder. Despite legal efforts to keep the team in Seattle, the NBA Board of Governors approves the move with a 28-2 vote. The franchise retains its player contracts and front office, but leaves behind the Supersonics name, logo, and records. The NBA promises that a future Seattle team can reclaim those rights. Between 2007 and 2009, the relocated franchise drafts Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden in consecutive years, 3 future MVPs within 3 drafts. In 2012, the Thunder reached the NBA Finals, losing to the Miami Heat in 5 games. That season, the trio averages a combined 68.4 points per game in the playoffs, with Durant leading the league at 28.5. But just 1 year later, the team trades Harden, initiating a cycle of near misses and what-ifs. The relocation itself remains one of the most criticized in league history, with fans in Seattle still protesting the league's decision. That public backlash leads directly into rising demand for the NBA's return to the Pacific Northwest.
If you made it this far, you're one of the real ones. At B-Ball Decoded, we don't sugarcoat the past. We break it down, team by team, draft by draft, mistake by mistake. If you love deep NBA stories, critical breakdowns, and raw basketball truth, hit that like button, subscribe for more Team Deep Dives, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next.